Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live and happy 4th of July. We're going to be testing out some of the new designs once again in some different formats. It was brought up in one of the previous live streams that the orca whales might look interesting in a Northern Lights type of setting, so I have a piece of blue holographic right here along with a piece of silver mirrored metallic cardstock. And then I have an additional one right here, so we'll do a couple different reflection card formats here. This one's using one of the Deanna Tubbs-Cedillo background papers, pre-printed background papers. You can contact Deanna Tubbs-Cedillo for information on that. She has a YouTube channel here on YouTube, and you can see her work on Facebook. But a couple different formats here. I mean, daytime, and then the Northern Lights would be nighttime. I'll do some additional imagery on both of these in this upper portion here. But I don't have anything really specific in mind, so bear with me here. Okay, now this one right here, I mean, we can do something really simple and just stamp this right down in this lower section. We can have this up top here. You can put a quote stamp, and that would be perfect for that. But I think just for kicks, I'll put some additional imagery up here. And I really like this reflection card format for these dorsal fins of these whales. I think it could look pretty three-dimensional potentially. So we'll give that a test. Hello, Linda. How are you? Hello, Sheila. Happy 4th of July. Let's see. Okay, so first things first. If you have ordered these orcas, you have some replacements on the way. What a whole fiasco. Not the end of the world, but as far as a rubber stamp manufacturing thing, quite a hassle, but there was some texturing on these dorsal fins here on 3 of the lower images. I don't know if everyone got it, because I think my rubber guy made 2 plates, 2 molds for each one of the 3 new plates, so I don't know. I wasn't going to have everyone, hey, test out your stamps and let me know who didn't get it, so we just sent it out to everyone that ordered them, but they are on the way. Okay, let me figure out what to put here in the background. I think we just used something off Nature Set number 41 previously. Grab that or something like that. Actually, I'm going to do something off Nature Set number 35, the Cozy Cabins, Night Cabins, I think. And let's see here. Sorry, I didn't have this prepared. I was working on 3 different compositions here, and I wanted to get one of them stamped out early so that it would dry before we got to work on it. But I'll be finishing off this piece right here with all these lanterns in here. So a lot of black area in here. I wanted that to really get I don't know, dry as much as possible before using. Okay, let's see here. Let's go with this. Okay, so Deanna Tubbs-Cedillo background paper. If you ever get any of those different types of papers, give it a test with, you can try it on the back too. There's some cool imagery on the back that they have on those different papers, but test and see what ink works the best for you on pre-printed papers, because even though this is a matte paper, we are going to be stamping on top of all these printer inks right here. So, you know, a versifying Clair type of thing. I don't know, I like a little bit of a thicker ink than a dye-based ink, okay? I just think it gives us a little bit more of a build-up on our papers pre-printed papers. So if you got anything like those wood grain papers or anything like that, what else was there? The vintage papers. Okay. I'm working. I almost stamped this high up here. I almost forgot we're doing the reflection card. I was just thinking about this one right here. I was thinking about doing this as a reflection card, like this little figure's walking either to or from a little pond in here. But I thought, it might be, you know, I don't know, just as effective just to do it as a single shot right here. The lanterns that are so far up in the composition here, they're not really reflecting down in the lower section. I'll show you guys that, what I'm talking about here in a bit. But, you know, that one is all about those lanterns and the reflections. So I thought, maybe we'll just try it out as just a non-reflection card format. But on that one right there, that kind of more Halloween looking one, I think spot coloring will be interesting potentially. So we'll go monochromatic on it. We'll bring some warmth into those lights like that, I think. All right, so let's use the other side right here too. I don't want two cabins right here, so I'm just utilizing the trees that are over here. And we'll go right down here like this. And we'll just utilize those trees on the other side like that. And if someone is watching this that hasn't seen what we're referring to in terms of a reflection card, you just put the same dimension of reflective cardstock down below. I usually go with the silver or gold. The other ones tend to get a little bit dark, but I don't know, I guess they could potentially work just depending on how much contrast you have in the upper portion of the card. But like that, and those items up above reflect down in this lower area. We'll put the orcas right down here. All right, but let's see. Let's anchor this down a little bit more. Okay, I was just using my, here we go, my Tiny Rock Small. I was talking with someone about the Tiny Rock Small stamp. I think they lost theirs or something, or was it their carpet or something like that? Is the same color as the rubber, like red-ish, and they have it on a piece of cling, but it landed upside down, so they didn't see it. All right, anchoring that down a little bit more with some of these rocky textures there. And then for the lower section, which is the metallic silver foil, what we're going to do is we're going to stamp in StazOn, because that's the only type of ink that will dry and adhere to this type of paper. You can stamp on here with a Brilliance black ink, which is a water-based pigment ink, but it'll dry, but it won't adhere, so you would have to spray seal it. Like a Krylon spray fixative is the thing that I use for that. Sometimes I do use the Brilliance, because sometimes I do this thing called blocking out, where I put white Brilliance ink down here and then stamp over the top of it with another image, and then I spray seal that down, because if you just stamp black onto this, sometimes you can't see, like I'm going to have something like a rock or something like that down here. And if I want that to really stand out, then we have to block some areas out with a lighter tone of ink. Okay, so this is what we're looking at right here. You can see those little rocks down there in the reflective area a little bit. Let's see here. Hello, Candy. Very loud on the lake, out of town, so it's legal. Hey, what the purple crown #1 for an icon in the messages? I don't know what you're referring to, Linda, there. Huh. I have no idea. I don't see it because I'm using this other kind of broadcasting, live streaming software. So I'm not seeing a YouTube chat. I have a separate, whatever, software app based chat that you guys are seeing. But congratulations on the crown. Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, hello, Megan Ellis. Happy 4th to you. You're behind in your Kevin stamp sets as well. Get up. You can get caught up today. Okay, let's see. All right, now here's the thing. This is one of those things. Stamping with StazOn ink onto metallic, non-porous silver cardstock, okay? It can be tricky, not with all images. Like if I was to stamp this, like think of leaves right here, it's stone simple. It just stamps on there super easy. But anytime you have these big kind of large flat areas, sometimes you stamp it down, and you might have experienced this before on other types of papers. Not so much on maybe a matte because it's really absorbent, but you have a lot of ink on here, and when you're stamping it on here, it's not absorbing at all, so it can kind of puddle underneath there. And I don't know, in printing, in some certain types of printing processes, they call it fish-eyeing. But it just, where something pools a little bit, and then if you lift it too early, there was no transfer of ink. Or if with the StazOn, if you keep it down too long, sometimes the ink dries. And then you lift the stamp up, or it dries a little bit, and you lift the stamp up, and instead of transferring to silver, you're lifting it off with the rubber, So, I don't know. It's a matter of, it's not just the type of ink, but kind of it's how much ink you might have on the stamp as well, okay? So if you re-ink it, it might act a little bit different. I don't know if temperature plays a part. I don't do this like all the time, so I don't know like I don't have it like down to a science or something like that. But I'm finding that I don't know, maybe a 5-second transfer or something like that, 10 something. I don't know, something in between there maybe. But I don't expect this to really give me a perfect impression. I never get it, so I just fill in with a Sharpie pen. Okay, now see those fins like that? It created that little bubble like that. Now I had a little problem with that impression thing. It was from the mold before, but if you're on, regular paper, it's just going to absorb in like that. Okay, so that's what you get with something like this. It looks pretty good up front here. It's not always with just all solid imagery. Like if I had some other types of textures around here, sometimes it all evens out. But we'll let that dry a little bit. Let's let that dry a little bit, and then I'll just go back in here into those open areas and just get it with a little bit of a Sharpie pen. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of these impressions because I want to have it the same type of whatever lower composition with this Northern Lights one. I'm going to do something up here too. We'll add some clouds up here. See this black image against that? See, these don't show up as much, right? Because it's a black image against a dark background, okay? But you go like this, and see those orcas stand out just fine because they're reflecting off of this white, really light area. So we'll add in some clouds into this one with some the white brilliance ink, which is the same type of thing as this lower portion in terms of the non-porous metallics. So this piece right here, when I add the white brilliance on here, after it dries, I'll spray seal it. Okay, let's go for another impression. Let's see if the impression comes out any different. I don't know. It could be, yeah. That's what I was thinking, Linda. It's probably, yeah, comment type of thing, logging in or something like that. Okay, I'm just seeing if I should, okay, now this one right here, I'm going to stamp this higher because my clouds that I'll be stamping out are going to be kind of lower on the composition, so I want these oils to be higher so that they reflect into that white, lighter area that's going to be right around in here, okay? So a little bit of planning going on. Let me try to use a little bit more pressure here. Sometimes you don't want to use too much pressure, though, because I don't know. Maybe not so much with the StazOn ink, but with the thicker kind of Brilliance ink, if I was doing Brilliance ink impressions on here. I'm worried about the ink just kind of squeezing out from underneath there, so kind of pressing harder, I don't know. It might not, be the thing to do. Okay, same thing on those dorsal fins right there. Okay. All right. So I have a reasonably juicy Sharpie pen. Let me see. Yeah, it's a newer one. And let me see if I can show you guys this. It's dark on dark here in my camera, but you just fill in like this. Now the Sharpie pen is like a solvent ink, right? So as you go and draw on here, draw on that fill in, what you might be doing is putting some of the StazOn ink impression back into solution. So sometimes you're coloring with this and it's like, wait a minute, it's not transferring on there, it's like coming off, but you just kind of stick with it. See, it went on really lightly at first. Now I'm going back in with a second coat and it's nice and dark, and then you get a nice dark print like that, okay? So you can kind of fill it into a little bit if it doesn't, if it comes out a little bit blotchy or anything like that. But I don't know. I think it's worth the whatever that it's worth the process just going in and filling in like this. And again, it's not just, it's mostly for images that have a fairly large solid area, okay? Like a 1/4 inch or so. Images like this, there's never any problem, even in those thicker areas in here. I don't know, it could be from, I don't know, distribution. I haven't figured it out yet. I don't know what the physics of it would be or whatever. All right, so there that is like so. And because that's solvent ink, and that's Sharpie that we've used on here, you really don't need to spray seal it. Those are affixed, and they will dry with no problem. Okay, let's see here. Which one should I start off with first? Let's do this one. Let's do this too. Let's do on this one, since there's so much light open area in here. Let's do that smaller pod as well. I think this is what I did in that scene a couple weeks ago. It wasn't a reflection card, was it? I kind of folded it in half, kind of, not completely, but this one I thought, oh, I think these would look really cool as in a reflection card or horizon card. Okay. Smaller design. I need to be careful that I don't kind of skew this. I don't really run into that too much with the StazOn ink, but if you're using the thicker Brilliance ink, sometimes you're stamping something out and it's like squishy because the ink isn't absorbing, so it's easy to kind of stamp down and then you kind of move it a little bit, and the image might rotate a touch. If it ever does, all you do is just wipe it off and just start over again with the Brilliance ink. If you skew it with the StazOn, you can just take some alcohol in or StazOn cleaner and wipe that image off and do it again. All right, so there those other pods are in the background there. I don't, these ones stamped out, they're lighter, okay, but there's a little bit, I guess I can fill in a little bit. There isn't too much. There's just like a little kind of spots like that I just kind of filled in. All right, that would be quite a view to live in that location right there, I would say. Maybe it's in the Puget Sound or something like that. All right, let's... This part right down here is done. As I mentioned in a previous video, you know, these orcas right here, they're going to be swimming in, like... I guess they could be if they're, like, in some kind of, like, mammal rookery and they're going after, like, seals or something like that. But, you know, they're going to be swimming in deeper waters, so I'm not putting, like... foreground grasses or something like that right now. I guess I can put like a rock, or I guess, you know, something like this would be kind of cool. Yeah, I'll do that sometime. But, okay. Pre-printed paper. I don't know, let's see. Let's use some, I'm just grabbing some colors out of here. I guess that blue in there isn't so extreme. You could go, I guess, fall colors on here if you want to. We'll make it more kind of summery, though. We'll do something like this, maybe. Here's alcohol inks, colored pencils, and I'll use some brown wooden tones for the structure, the cabin maybe. All right, let's see. I'm not going for yellow trees here, but it's kind of my, it's the lightest color that I'll be using in here. So I'm using it as like a base color, and I'm applying it fairly lightly. Like I'm probably achieving like a, I don't know, maybe a 10% version of that. That would be like a 100% version of that. And this paper is matte, as I keep saying, but so matte paper, in theory, you can build up a little bit more of this type of tone on here because it's going to be more absorbent and textural. But again, this does have those printer inks on here, you know, in order to achieve that cool background. So it is filling up some of those pores, you know, there's that tooth that the paper has. So I can't go too thick, you know, with some of these layers of colored pencil, because I'm going to fill it all up, and then it's pretty much, you know, it's going to have this thick slathering of wax on there. So if I wanted to go darker or something like that, I might not be able to apply it because the lighter colors have all filled it up. So I'm going really lightly with these initial tones right here at first, you know, because I want to use my darker greens, maybe some other colors on these trees like this. Okay. Okay. A little bit of shading underneath the structure like that. See, as you tone in these areas behind an object that you want to stand out a little bit more, it makes that come out visually or dimensionally. So you're just playing contrasts against one another. Anyone going to see any fireworks tonight? Or lighting fireworks, maybe, if it's legal in your city. In the city that I grew up, it wasn't, fireworks weren't legal, but in the kind of a little bit of a larger city, um, 15, 20 miles away from us, which was the next city to us, but that was legal there, so we'd go and buy fireworks every year. And then set them off in our city, which was, wasn't legal to do so. We're just talking about some very basic ones. Sparklers, what is it, the snakes, Piccolo Pete's, those flowers. It was always the same thing every year, it seemed. All right. Let's address this rooftop here. Or just the cabin in general. Something like that. Okay, but see how I transition it? It's one plane in theory, but it's going to be flat like that, but I vary the tones on it, just like if it was a bridge or anything like that. If it's a building, I usually have it transitioning from, a little bit darker to lighter on that surface, just to make it seem a little bit more interesting than single value like that, okay? And we can do that in a couple different tones like that. All right, see that right there? It's kind of standing out a little bit more. Bring some of this down on these rocks, maybe. Scrolling down here on my chat here. They're a top contributor to the live streams. Is that the first time the crown showed up on anyone, or any of those indicators have shown up on anyone's piece? Hello to everyone that's joined in. I scrolled up a little bit on my thing right here. If I scroll up a little bit, it doesn't show me all these things. So sometimes I forget to scroll down again, to get the current comments. All right, so see this right here. I add in a little bit of this brown into the mix, into my trees, usually like so. Speaking of fireworks, I wouldn't think fireworks are legal in any, I wouldn't say California, but any of the, I don't know, I maybe you can say all of California. You wouldn't think it'd be legal anywhere with all the wildfires. All right, here we go, like that. It looks a little, one of the things about colored pencils, it's always kind of, it's a super mellow and soft looking medium, okay? Which I like, all right? But I like to have a bit of brightness and richness, etc. So I like to add in whatever the according media for that. So in this case, something like, a light green maybe, in the shadow areas would be good for the trees. When you start doing a lot of different media, multimedia like this too, if you want to have a little bit of that softness from the colored pencils and the brightness and the richer tones of the alcohol and colored pencils, that combination, so that you have kind of, I don't know, whatever, dull and bright, that range. You have to be careful you don't kind of start coloring in everything. Try to retain some of those, just in this case, bare applications of colored pencil. Otherwise, then you can just color everything over, which it'd be okay. But if you want to have that range, just make sure that you don't just kind of end up filling everything in, which is really easy to do when you're just, when you're doing so many layers of things. And I didn't even use like dye base inks on this one. That would add in yet another different media. All right, so something like that. So see that there's a little bit more of diversity in here in terms of brightness. The shadows are a little bit richer. Oh, yeah, that's when those dogs hate those, dogs hate fireworks, don't they? I used to watch one of those, sometimes they do still. I don't know, it doesn't come up on my feed now that I think about it, but those dog rescue channels. And I remember watching them, and I think a lot of them were, or not a lot, but a few of them that I seem to recall were situations where, someone's reported a dog that's been hanging around some area, but, and, if the dog was, had a chip, well, it was tracker chips in it, on them or in them, sometimes the family showed up and say, yeah, the dog, it's like whatever, escaped from the 4th of July fireworks. All right, so adding in some black here into these shadow areas like that. See, going a little bit darker too, those windows, I don't know to you, but those windows, don't they seem a little bit lighter too? Now these windows down here were in some of the blue areas right in here, so going a little bit darker in here, it's not going to make the blue lighter, but by contrast it might make them seem that way. So if you go a little bit darker right in here in the shadows, it can kind of bring those windows out by contrast a little bit more. Okay, and what we're looking at is, let's see, right here, like about like so. This would be perfect for like some kind of quote up here, I think. Let's finish this one off with a little bit of white pigment ink down here. Okay, so see this right here? Now I would add this white pigment ink in here anyway, but see this right here? You don't really see this head of this orca as much. Maybe I should have stamped that one a little bit back a little bit more, but you see this right here where it's a little bit dark right here, so it's this area right here. So you can see my finger right over that orca right here. So I can lighten this up a little bit with some white pigment ink so that this orca right here stands out a little bit more. I mean, I just think it looks good on this anyway, but that would be an extra benefit. So again, you can manipulate things a lot with white pigment ink, for different purposes. Speaking of fireworks, it's kind of interesting, I didn't go see fireworks for years and years and years. I wasn't at some location where they, had them or whatever. Like, I wasn't in like in amusement parks, but it's like if you have kids, then you start going to see, like, okay, we're going to go see the fireworks. Or, you're at SeaWorld or something, or Disneyland or something like that. So it's like a a reintroduction to fireworks, and I was really surprised at the kind of the new style of fireworks than what I had remember seeing decades previous. Nowadays, I think it's like a lot of shows, maybe instead of doing the fireworks, they're doing those drone shows, like a synchronized drones with those lights on it. It's really incredible. Okay, so white pigment ink on a white cotton ball. Okay, and let's go in and we'll lighten up some of this right in here. We'll bring, this is kind of, Deanna's done this background paper with these really soft touches on those clouds, so it's kind of fun bringing in that same, whatever textural element into the front of your objects, whatever you've stamped out. Okay, so I'm kind of softening up some of these trees right in here. And if I could help it, I won't do all of them. It's kind of nice to have it kind of like varied. It's like half of that tree, those trees right in between these two other ones. I kind of went in front of that one. But these ones are just crisp like that. So you see that right there. You get a lot of nice textural diversity. It's lighting diversity too. But it's kind of like depth, because the ones that are kind of darker look closer to us, and then the ones that you're knocking down look farther away. So you've created depth in the background trees, as well. Let's see, let's go right here. Let's bring some of this around this way too. Now see, these ones right here just inherently didn't stamp out as long, dark, because I don't know, I stamped it out and I lifted it up, without allowing enough of that ink to transfer. I wanted it darker, but being that it's lighter, you just kind of run with it and scenic stamp, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna knock some of this down, so this seems like lighter anyway. There's more of a mist in front of it, I guess. I'll go like that. Let's take a look here. Okay, like that. And see this right here? Doesn't that head kind of stand out a little bit more now? Because we've knocked that down right in here. So, you've misted it. Okay. Fireworks start. Fires, yeah, bad with our the eucalyptus trees. That's for sure. A lot of oil in those eucalyptus trees. There's a lot of eucalyptus here in California. I think it's both the Civil Conservation Corps and the I don't know if the California Conservation Corps, if it's the Civil Conservation Corps, maybe both of them. Probably at different times planted a lot of eucalyptus. And I think it was on, actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if it's on state land. I know it's on federal land. So maybe it's a Civil Conservation Corps. But yeah. I don't know if they would plant that, type of thing. They were just doing it to create jobs. They should have been planting more, I don't know, indigenous oak trees or something like that. But I don't know. I guess they went with eucalyptus because, you can better chance of survival, growth in low water environment, maybe. All right. Let's go with a much lighter tone than that. That was my light green over light green. I thought it would stand out a little bit more, but little bit of textural and lighting. I was at my in-laws' place. It's probably been 10 years at this point in time. They lived in Oregon, or still do, but their kids, my niece and nephew, and my kid too, they hadn't lit their own fireworks before. And we just had some sparklers and stuff like that. Nothing, you know, we're not doing like things like big fountains or anything like that. But that was fun, kind of picking up some fireworks and having them have a little fireworks show in there. They had a big driveway, so we just, you know, set off everything in there. All right, so see these little textures in here, like so. Oh, let's do this too. Let's bring some down with this water. A little sparkly, not crepuscular, specular light. That, oops, wrong one. That. Okay. Yeah, this piece is really kind of screaming for some sort of quote stamp. It seems like come up with a good quote stamp. I put a few little of these little dots of white down there like that, like a little sparkly little shimmers on the water like that. We can't really see it too much, but anyway, that's the fun of doing like a reflection card. I think this would look really good with like the Seaside Cove down here with these stamped on the Seaside Cove. That would turn it into a horizon card as opposed to a reflection card. But, you know, having that kind of reflection from up above right down there, I don't know, it makes for kind of an interesting reveal for those that receive your cards. But yeah, something is like, would be perfect right up here, a quote stamp, I think. All right, let's see. All right, now this one right here should be nice and dramatic right here. So Northern Lights over the, I don't know, whatever, maybe the Arctic or something like that. You can't really see the whales right in there though, right? So what we'll do is we'll take our white pigment ink. This paper right here is kind of interesting because this is, you get these different holographics like this, and they come in different colors across, I think, every brand that has them. And what they do is they just take like a basic silver, I think, holographic, and then they put some ink over the top of it, and that creates that, whatever, that color of ink. But it'll probably come off on this a little bit. We'll see. All right. Let's see. Let's do this right here. I was just going to freehand the whole thing in, but I'll show you what you can do if you haven't done this before. So let's grab a paper towel. I was going to say a ripped paper towel that almost has the profile of a cloud. Here, I'll kind of do some additional tearing right here. How's that look? And then you just kind of lay this down like this, okay? And what you do is you take like a nice glob of ink. All right, now my pad is going to be a lot drier than a lot of people, so maybe you're just lightly tapping, okay? But then you go about halfway on and halfway off the paper towel here. What is this called? What do you guys call these, Linda, in Australia? Is it still called a paper towel? It's probably called something else. All right, but see this right here? here's what I like to do. See, I'm kind of like moving this, okay? Like if I want this a little bit higher, then I move it higher. But what I'm trying to do here, remember how I was showing you how on that cabin, I like to vary my application of like shadow, darkness. I like to do the same thing with lightness too. So I'm applying more around up here. And then I'm just kind of, you keep kind of adding it like that. If you just kind of put a couple tabs, it's going to look really blotchy, right? So you just kind of keep working it. But see this right here? It's a really harsh edge like that. So what you can do is you can just kind of move it like this, okay? So I'm building this area up. So it's a little bit heavier right here, but then you see this lighter area right here. And then I'll just freehand it too, like this, okay? So you're just kind of using this as like it's like a guide, but it doesn't have to be hard set, okay? Now this white ink too, this Brilliance ink, remember it's not just a white pigment ink, it's a white water-based pigment ink, so it's going to dry on here. But you have to give it a little bit of time to dry, and then we're going to not heat set it, but spray fix it to the surface. It changes the surface, this look a little bit. It gets a little bit more frosted, but that's that's just, what we have to do here to use this super dynamic paper in this method. Now these are clouds right here too, but I was saying sometimes if you're going to have like a light rock, that you can kind of see on this type of paper. I just stamped this out in black ink over this super dark paper. We're not going to be able to see it, so you can block out like this and then stamp this over the top of it, and then you wipe off the extra, and then you spray fix that, and that'll stick. So that's how that's done. Okay, but anyways, let's keep moving this along here. I don't want to block in the whole thing. That's the whole point of using this, holographic, so you can see the holographic. But I do find that adding in kind of this type of thing or objects into it, it anchors the piece, that super loud paper, down a little bit visually. I mean, you don't have to do this. Like, you put some stars up there or something like that. Or you might be able to do, like, have clouds on a separate piece of paper. You stamp them out and then you cut them out. And then you put them right here. It's not going to look as, like, feathery soft or something like that. But it'll just have a different look. But, it'd be an effective way to have something that can reflect down in this lower area. What was that now, Megan? What is that? Praying for all of those in Carey County, Texas, and the missing girls from the camp on the river. What the? Okay, I didn't follow that. Something happened there? Was there a flooding or something like that? And some kids went missing? It's like a flash flood? Okay, going around and tweaking this a little bit. This is going to dry, and it's going to look darker and kind of more see-through than what it looks like right now, too. Okay. When you're doing this right here, you're kind of applying ink, but it's two-dimensional, of course. Just working on the surface right here. But you kind of have to think of it almost like you're... I don't know, it's like a three-dimensional thing, like you're applying, like you're manipulating clay or something like that, that's kind of the sensibility of it, which sometimes it's kind of weird to, to get in the mindset of that. Again, because we're working on two-dimensional surface, so Okay, so let's see if we've done it right there. Okay, now see that I can't see this head right here. I need to go a little bit more right up here. But you see how you can see these dorsal fins now so much more against this reflective cloud down below like that. So otherwise, if it's just the paper like that, so you can't see them though like that. So you throw in something like that and it's whatever, we've increased the visibility of that. Okay, so let's add a little bit more right around in here. I'll just freehand it. Kind of when you start freehanding it a little bit, it kind of blends everything a little bit more. Or if you want this a little bit more wispy looking, we can kind of come up in this area. I'm kind of trying to make it where it's a little bit slanted like this instead of just kind of going straight across like that. So I'm trying to develop a little bit of an angle. Now, if you've just started doing this too, I'm surprised I haven't been kind of, but it's like if you touch this right here, you're gonna like remove the ink. It's gonna come right off in your finger. If it does, you know, you just kind of fill it in. Or sometimes I'm doing this and it's like, oh, I scraped it right here, and it's like all these scratch marks right through it. And then you just, you know, you just tap it right back in there. And then sometimes you're adding this in, and it's you know, you're, instead of addition, like if this started to dry on here really fast on me, sometimes, and I'm going on with wet, because it's not adhered, it's like I'm removing the ink too. Or if you have long fingernails, I just trimmed mine, and you're holding this like this, those fingernails, you know, you might be getting these like half moon types of areas in here. It's because the nails are kind of punching through and it's giving you this kind of that shape in there. So if that happens, you just kind of, you know, just change your angle a little bit, okay? Or adjust accordingly. Or just kind of bunch this up a little bit more dense like this and apply. All right, but I think that should be okay like that. Oh, good. I cleaned off my splatter brush right here. Stippling over paper towel. Hello, Sharita. Happy 4th of July. Guadalupe River flooded. Oh my gosh. Where were the kids? Were they playing next to the river or something like that, or is it just some? Oh my God, 20 girls unaccounted for. They were Christian youth. Oh my gosh, yeah. That must have been, to have 20 girls or anybody go missing in a flash flood. That just hit them. There must have been a wall of water, like something like that. The only other time I've heard something like that, but it's not a group of 20. It's like when, like canyoneers, people go into these canyons, and a lot of times it's in the desert, like in it's a lot of times it's in the summertime like this, and that's when they get those flash floods, those what do they call those? Oh gosh, I forgot the name of that thing. Yeah, it'll come to me after this video. But yeah, they get hit with those flash floods like that. I'm always really careful when I go out to the desert, and if there's any kind of rain clouds in the sky at all, because I like going in this rock system out in Joshua Tree National Park. Yeah, a lot of times not like, I don't know, not like in the, you know, right in the middle of summer or anything like that, because it's too dang, you know, hot. But I've been out there in like in spring and, I don't know, maybe beginning of summer like that when it's still kind of bearable. But if I see those clouds up there at all, I start heading out of there pretty quick. But my gosh, 20 kids, that's insane. All right. I need to be careful about touching this area right here, but here's the, so these two things in here kind of add stability to this whole kind of wobbly, kind of crazy type of paper to use in stamping like that. There you have those lights like that, so it can make for a pretty dramatic setting. Something's definitely missing in here. I mean, I'll put like this quote stamp up here or a word stamp up here, especially with nothing down here in the foreground. You can you can stamp something. If you have a word stamp or something like that, you can stamp it down here too, and it'll look like in white, and it'll look like it's floating on the surface of this water. But I think that looks pretty cool like that. Yeah. But yeah, we definitely need we need a third element in here. There's the sky, clouds, and the orcas like that. But we need some other type of focal point, and word stamps always provide that. When people look at something like this, it'll probably play an equal part in the, I don't know, whatever the competition for someone's attention. Okay, so again, we'll let this dry. I usually let it dry overnight. I don't like heat setting this if I don't have to. If you're in a rush, I guess you can do something like that. Kind of heat set a little bit from the back like that. And I like to use the Krylon spray fixative. I don't know what they call it, fixative with an F at the end. But you just spray this lightly, and you spray it mostly down in this area. You can put a little bit of spray over the top of those stars like that. It wouldn't hurt. Those are prone to kind of rub off. They're not as prone to kind of rubbing off like this ink down here. But give it a really light spray. Okay, don't hit it with a super heavy one. And then you just let it dry, and we're talking like 5 seconds or something like that. Then you hit it again with a little bit of pass. I'm spraying it usually from like 10, 12 inches away, something, the length of this paper right here. And sometimes I'm shooting it in bursts like that, or you can go like this too. I usually like to hit it in bursts, like I'll go here, 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 like that, and just let it dry for a little bit. And then you hit it again. Because if you hit it too thickly at first, and if it takes like a few seconds for that to set up and dry, that can be the time that it takes to kind of put this. They're two different things. This is water-based, but it can still kind of like spread out if it takes too long to dry, okay? So anyways, that's the kind of the technique there with that one. All right, if you just joined in, here's a couple of the orcas like this in reflection card formats. I really like the look of that like that. And I think, like I said, again, maybe it's maybe it look even better kind of in a horizon card format where we just stamp these whales onto like a water, another piece of paper. You can do it like this without I don't know, the northern lights like that look really good in a reflection format, but this one right here I think would look really cool too. It wouldn't have the movement as a reflection card, but sometimes just putting, like I said, those ocean waves down there, you can get a lot of different texturing in here too with something like the Seaside Cove. All right, so my new street lantern lamps with some of the old, not real old, last year's Halloween imagery. Let's see if we can get this into a format really fast here. And this one right here I'm going to do just in some grayscale. We'll add in some warm tones in there too, but largely monochromatic. And then we'll add some warm tones into these lights and see what that looks like, along with that little lantern up there. Maybe with the, this whole church, have it kind of illuminated from the inside as well. All right, London fog right here, okay. 20 kids, man, that is so insane. You got me thinking about that now. 26 feet in 45 minutes. Oh my gosh. Whenever that happens too, it's like, the rains are happening upstream you know, and coming down hard. Otherwise, they would have got out of there, you know, if it was starting to rain a little bit. And I mean, if it's, what did they say? What did you say there? It was a Christian youth camp trip. I gotta think those leaders, you know, if they're camping out like that, they were probably, you know, they probably have experience in that type of thing. Maybe not the extremes like 26 feet in 45 minutes, but I don't know. It's like these days, I think we need to be kind of prepared for whatever record-breaking extremes in terms of weather events, I think. Okay, let's see. All right, I'm adding this in very lightly right here. I heat set this before I came on, but I think some of this black ink is still a little bit chalky. So if I did this type of thing right over the top of it, right off the bat, I think I would streak some of that tone in there. This is a semi-gloss cardstock. So smooth, but a little bit porous. Look at this right now. I mean, it's just like putting a little bit of tone around the edges like that. You just even going with a little bit of vignette like that, doesn't it help it quite a bit? You can see where kind of just adding in a darker perimeter like this really helps to kind of contain your compositions really well. And it's like in studio portraiture, you know, class photos and stuff like that, they have that darker perimeter. So it's like landscape portraiture. Okay, now as this gets drier on here, I'm kind of, when it was really wet, I'm kind of a little bit more like really perimeter oriented, but now as this gets drier on here, I'm applying less ink, so I'm kind of using this on this next next perimeter or interior. I'm working from outside inside, okay? And it's going to go from dark to light. So you kind of, as this gets drier and drier on here, you just kind of work towards your interior accordingly. Okay, let's see. See, I want to get in between these two a little bit, but if I was doing it with the ink that was like super wet when I was starting to do it out here, I'd have this like big fingerprint area in there, kind of where there's this big slathering of it. Now it's like each tap, it's like a, I don't know. I don't even know if it's a 1% version of this gray, so it's really simple to manipulate and control. Now, if it's taking, you know, you don't want it to take, 100 taps to see like barely anything, and that's when you'd re-ink. But I like to have that control over it, or as much control as possible. Okay, here's this road. I mentioned this the other day, but or was it a week? But I want this largely illuminated like this, but I don't want it like, like super bright or something like that, yellow brick road or something like that. But so putting some tone across right here, just to kind of break that up a little bit. But again, it's broken up with a super light version of it. Yeah, that is so crazy with those kids. Wait, what did they say here? Oh, it's 4 a.m. there. Yeah, Linda. Is that 4 a.m. for you, Linda? You're like me. Stay awake till all hours. All right, so that's like one inking of a re-inker. I have this video called The Benefits of Re-inkers, I think. So if if you use a re-inker on whatever your applicator is, your sponge applicator, or in this case a paper towel, it's just so easy to apply. Okay, I'm looking for another re-inker here. This is Peach Bellini. I'm going to give it a little bit of a warmer tone. The London Fog's kind of a cool tone. I'm going to go in with this warmer one now. It's going to make it look a little bit muddy probably at first, but I'm going to bring in a lot of other tones in here. Plus, for this kind of a scene right here, kind of having a muddier kind of looking color scheme isn't, necessarily a bad thing. Okay, now I've got everything kind of... that first layer kind of... I don't know. It doesn't affix that ink down there. Or I don't know, does it? I don't know. I don't know if it kind of puts everything into solution, makes it moist, and then some of that black ink, that's on the surface, maybe it absorbs into the paper. I don't know. But... let's apply this right over the top, and like I said, you could go with a little bit more of a, a different touch than tapping. All right, now see, I'm kind of staying away from some of these lanterns right here, and it's just kind of inherently looking like they're kind of glowing a little bit, which is kind of cool. All right, now see what I'm doing right here? We've left some of these areas light like that. So I'm just putting some shadows at the base of the tombstones like that. But you see these little areas like this where they're illuminated? In terms of a lighting scheme, that's what's really important to retain. Just some areas that are a little bit lighter. I mean, you could do different things to emphasize things more. We could make these things, we could get rid of that lighting in there if you really want to emphasize this pathway a lot more, you can do that. I don't know, for me, I usually like to mix it up though. In terms of lighting, so it's going from dark, light, this is like light right here, so it's dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, right? Checkerboard your surfaces with shadow, shading. All right, let's see. I think that is good for that. Let's look at some... I'm tempted to bring in some greens in here, things like that, but I'm looking at this right here. I don't think I remember... I haven't used rich cocoa in a long time. I can tell because it's on the bottom of my, well, I don't remember using it either, but in a while, but it's also on the bottom of my Memento ink pad stack here on my desk. Okay, let's see how dark this is. I don't want it too dark, I don't think. Let's see. It's not too bad. It's quite a bit darker than the those two previous colors, though, for sure. So what you do is you just kind of adjust your application rate. Okay, so I'm tapping it with a lighter touch, maybe, and I'm not applying as much ink, maybe, too. I mean, my pad's probably like super juicy because I just, I don't know, I haven't really used it very much. That I should. It hasn't been for any kind of purpose. I'm not kind of avoiding using it, or haven't avoided using it. Okay, this is starting to get quite a bit darker. I've gone up a few values here. I was watching, I didn't hear about the flood. I haven't logged into the news in the past couple days, I don't think, but I was reading this other one, like I don't know, there's like a bunch of like earthquakes or something like that in Japan. Like a huge number of them, I guess. Got to be prepped. If you're anywhere near kind of open areas, or you don't even, I don't know, it used to be that you'd have to be really close or amongst like open areas, brush areas, to be considered in like a red zone for fires. But now it's like, I don't know what it is. If you're within a mile now, maybe it would be considered high risk. All right, there we go. We're starting to move quite a bit darker here. Okay, now, right around in this perimeter, I don't know if you saw that, but see if I go like that. See how that ink just comes right off on my finger? It's because we're starting to achieve kind of a super saturation using the ink that we're applying. So it's possible that when you're applying on here, if you wipe into it or something like that, you're wiping off ink because it's just not absorbing into the surface very quickly. All right. Rich cocoa. Look how much darker it is. I'm applying it over 2 really thick layers of ink though. So not a lot of it really transferred on there, but you got kind of the gist of the tone on there, but just not the full value of that color. All right. My Marvy Black ink is like it's quite a bit thinner of an ink than other brands, okay, in all colors. So if I apply this on here, you can see it gets pretty dark here. If you're not using Marvy and you're using a thicker style of black, maybe heat set this a little bit so it becomes a little bit more absorbent, and your application of ink, additional wet media, will transfer on there. Because if you're going wet into wet, especially if it's a really thick ink, you might not, you might be working a little bit too hard to get anything to transfer. So this is what the black is looking like right now, right over there to there. Let's see, Sharita, were you referring to the holographic paper, probably? Look, I think I mentioned this in my other video, but this holographic pillory style of a pattern, that I didn't see it for sale on Amazon anymore. Now, I mean, there might be, and that type of paper is really kind of rare. I've looked on other sites before. There's holographics, and there's different types of holographics. Not too many different types, though. But that pillory one like that, I don't know, I call them light pillars. That type, there were about, maybe at most, like 3 or 4 sellers of it in different configurations. Maybe it was like one color, then it's usually multicolored packs though. And one of them had some of the holographic in there, like the blue one especially. But then it also come with like a couple pieces of like just some light blue and maybe a darker blue foil, solid color foil, which was, okay. I don't use those ones as much as the holographic though. But then there was a multi-pack of that type of pillory holographic that came out that was really reasonable in price. And it was all of that type of pattern, but different colors though. And that was gone. Okay, but when I checked again, like a few weeks later, I don't know if it was the same seller, but it was back on there, so available again. But that's one that I would really miss if it were to disappear. All right, so adding this in. One thing about the paper being really wet is that makes this blending kind of process and application really easy to do because it's moist. So when you're dabbing in moist into moist, you know, you can really kind of, you know, blend it out if you need to. If it doesn't seem like things are blending too, what you do is you go back and add in some of your lighter color base colors, and then just go over it again, and then go back to your darker tone. And it should apply really nice and gracefully. That's usually not the problem though, but it can be. Like if my pads are a little bit drier or something like that, but usually not when I'm using re-inker inks. You know, it really gets the paper pretty saturated. It's usually like too wet, you know, if anything. All right. So that is that. I don't think I can go in here with colored pencils right now because it's just so wet. So let's hit it with a little bit of a heat gun and get that dried up. If you're drying it to apply more ink on there, don't dry it completely, but I think for the colored pencil, we better take it to pretty close to dry. My fingers are really hot. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, what Candy, who was that? Linda said it. Yeah, like the application of hairspray. Unless you're a punk rocker and going from one of those like spiky mohawks, not that application of hairspray. All right, let's see here. I think that looks pretty decent here, but well, let me refine it a little bit. Just out of habit. What I want to do is I want to come in and add a little bit more of a shadow work, maybe at the base of some of these like tombstones or other figures in here. Maybe around the or on the brick pathway. Don't take your shadows darker than the objects that would be casting the shadows. So these tombstones right here are a lot darker, but I stamped these ones in the background a lot lighter. So don't take your shadow darker than those objects, okay? So in this case, it'd be really a very light shadow. All right. Second brown. See, it just makes that a little bit richer in there. Remember, we were talking about kind of intensity and brightness in the in this piece right here, just kind of making the shadows in here just seem a little bit brighter like that, like right in there. Okay, see, you can make these a little bit brighter. Again, I don't want it like super bright, you know, because the scene, you know, it's supposed to have more of a drearier kind of essence to it, you know, so. Although it'd be cool to have some little kid walking down this dreary pathway with, like, you know, like a scene from a few years ago where I did it with you know, they had like a little red balloon. Is Cynthia still in there? Did Cynthia? Did you get that red balloon? I don't know. Someone won that one in the auction. I'd watched this movie called It, and there's this like icon of this red balloon throughout the movie to, I don't know, whatever, signify this creature, and as the main bad entity had this red balloon. So I had this little kid walking down a little kind of haunted pathway or whatever into the woods with a little red balloon. Black colored pencil. I'm still thinking about those kids. My gosh, man. 20. All right, let's hit this a little bit with some greens in here. Kind of, I like this kind of this greenish tinge. It's like give it a little bit more of a damp kind of murkiness to it. You know, this green. Maybe it's like gives it kind of like an algae, moss covered kind of, you know, feel. All right, I was telling you, I was thinking about putting this as a reflection card. So here this scene is like that. It was going to be this scene going down to like this pond down here like this, okay? I mean, it looks okay, but I really think that I'd have to do some of those lower lighting elements in here, those lanterns, I think. Those ground level ones more than this, because I think I can go like this and see those lanterns up here, but they're way down in like right in here, so there's nothing kind of up here that's all the interesting stuff is like our figure right here, these lights right here, and then this part right here, you know, the church, that, you know, the visual kind of destination or whatever you might say. So none of this is kind of reflected in this area down below. So I thought, oh, okay. I mean, it would still be kind of interesting. I mean, I could put those other lanterns, I guess, in the water down here, like floating down here too. I don't know, maybe that would be a good solution, but nothing, I don't know, it kind of goes against my general kind of notion of a reflection piece that, you know, something up here is kind of highlighting what's going down here, a la the orcas in the other one, or there's just something kind of, you know, more interesting up here that reflects down here, you know, than just, you know, in this one it would be like, you know, it'd be like reflecting dirt. All right, I think that looks okay, like so. Like that. All right. What do you think as far as like lighting for those lanterns? Like reddish orange maybe, or something like that? I don't know, what's the complement to dirty, muddy green? I think maybe, I don't know, maybe like yellow and ochre or something like that. Maybe something like this right here. Open those lights, maybe. Let's give it a try. I'm not sure about the orange, but let's start off with the yellow like this. What I do is I kind of add this in, but I leave a little bit of a light area. See, even like in these little lights, I like to have a little bit of a range and tone. We'll add this like that. Okay, I'll add a little bit up there in that church windows too. Like that. So we'll go in with these, all these lights like that. And if I didn't add that, I might have added that too thickly. I don't know if this ochre is going to apply. Maybe a little bit. I'm not sure. We can also make these lights kind of more of this greenish tone, you know, which might be a little bit more eerie, but I already have green down here, so I'm thinking I might want something just to contrast a little bit more. Let me try a little bit of this orange here. I'm having a hard time transferring it because I applied the yellow too thick, but I'm putting a little bite. I don't know, can you see that right there? That little bit of orange. It kind of stands out from the background a little bit more. The colors. So go like that. Let me see if I have a red that'll apply. If you're working with like softer and softer color, you can still apply it over there, but okay, here's a little bit of red. I'm just adding a little bit towards the base like this, and we'll try to make them glow too with some white pigment ink. All right, something like that. These are called lantern illuminators right here. The Tim Holtz lantern illuminators. I'm just joking. He has great stuff. All right, Q-tip right here, cotton swab. Again, my pad here is fairly dry. We're going to blot it down a little bit, and I'm going to loosen up the tip. I can't loosen it up too much because these things are really tiny right here. So, I don't know, maybe I'll have a looser tip right here for these front ones. And let's go for a fairly tight Q-tip application of that. I find, again, I always mention this, but the 100% cotton ones like this just seem to grab more ink rather than to kind of, you know, wick that moisture. So I'd always recommend 100% cotton when applying pigment inks onto your pieces. Okay, let's see here. I think I applied too much right here. I'm going to remove some of that. What I was doing is I was putting it right over the top of that, and that's a little bit too much. Oh, I think the paint pen will help be a nice little addition here too. So what I'm doing is illuminating the top portion of that, but I'll leave that area down below a little bit. Just that color there. I did need to get other colors of brilliance. And the yellow brilliance would probably be perfect for that. If not 2 layers, white and yellow brilliance. All right, so see these are glowing a little bit more now. We'll see what those look like when they kind of dry off a little bit, though. Let me see something here. These back ones got a little bit dark, so I'm going to add a little bit of light back into them. They just got dark when I tapped over them with some of that tone like that, so this will reclaim some of that lightness. There, that actually looks pretty good. It's really subtle, but this the acrylic paint pen kind of brought that out a little bit more. Maybe I had a little bit of like a dot of white in there or something like that. Okay. White pigment ink for the atmosphere in this piece. Any place where you've retained some white of the card or just a lighter area, that's a pretty good place to start. You just kind of take some of this in a dry fashion, and from those lighter areas, you just kind of add some of it in where it's like barely visible. And then you kind of migrate that lightness out into the areas around it that are slightly darker, okay? I need more here. Let's see. See this right here? I'm migrating that light out here like that, but over the top of the imagery. Like that. You can come up. I don't want to migrate all the way across everything, but you just kind of start it right there and just kind of go into your other imagery a little bit. Okay, so see this right in here, that's light and it's kind of coming through here. There's no set place where you have to add it, or one place is wrong to add and the other place is right, or anything like that. But adding a little bit of variation is always good. So this is like lighter in that horizon up there, so I can kind of come down like that. I don't know, maybe I put a little bit too much over the top of that one. She's standing in lightness, so I can put a little bit of her in the fog like that. All right, there's your atmosphere. And a little bit of a stronger mood, maybe. I might be adding too much of this, maybe, I don't know. It's kind of like illuminating the piece, almost. Now it's like more like a happy piece. Not really, but happier. Actually, that's not a good description. Not quite as dreary. End of the trail, we'll add a little bit of this fog to make it kind of diffused. Let's do this. Let's bring up some of the mist into that church like that. All right, so it's coming in here like that. Looks pretty good. There, it's try to extend it. All right, that, and I keep adding more and more. You know, it's like if I haven't ruined it with so much, then I just kind of keep going sometime. And it's like, oh, I added a little bit too much. You can just take a dry paper towel and like erase it. See, like that. It's like, oh, is that too much there? You just take that off and see, that just comes right off. You know, if you want to. So you have plenty of time to kind of manipulate it. If it's on like a really absorbent, like matte paper, maybe you have a little bit less time. But you know, it's usually not going to dry so fast that you can't manipulate it, you know, pretty easily. All right. With Linda Bystrom still here. Thanks, Bonnie. It's time, Linda. We started doing like those monster maps like a couple years ago, and it's like, okay, it's time to bust out the little beady eyes and the shadow, you know, like I don't know, whether like Scooby Doo cartoons or something like that. It's time for the beady eye thing, whatever these are. Creatures, rats, mice, whatever, in the darkness. It's no one ask if don't ask if I have a stamp of those eyes that, you know, that they can, you know, you can buy. I'm joking about it. Sometimes like I've been asked that in the past, like you know, it's like 2 dots or something like that. Hey, you just do it in like maybe you should make a stamp out of that or something like that, where you could stamp out those eyes. I'm thinking, well, I don't know. It's like 2 dots, you know. They didn't ask me about that. I don't know. I think I forgot what it was. Not in recent years, you know, 20 years ago or something like that. All right. So I just like that. That shadow looks a little bit harsh, doesn't it? Let's see. I mean, it looks okay, but let's do this. There. It's just a little bit lighter and darker right in the shadow itself. Huh? How about that? So anyway, this is kind of like the place that we're going to be having a scenic stamping retreat if anyone's interested. All right, let's see what we have here. So we're, you know, pretty quick scenes. I mean, this one was, you know, reasonably quick to stamp out. The thing that took me the most amount of time was just grabbing the stamps that I was going to be using on here. It's like, I don't know. It's like one set, you know, with a lot of the all the tombstones, and are those the same set? That might be the same set that has the church, I think. But the trees, the winter ash. Okay, here's the. Let me get this at an angle where you guys can see it here. And this one, and this one's very incomplete, but you know, I won't be doing too much to it. But I'll try to get that in focus here in a second. Quote stamp or something like word stamp up here. I'm not going to be stamping it directly on there. I'm going to stamp it out on something else and put it in there. All right, doing too many of these. I can't get them positioned right here. that reflection's messing up my camera. It doesn't know where to focus, right here or there, I think. Anyway, maybe it looks better a little bit kind of blurry. Let's see. Red orange sounds good for lighting. Yeah. Now, Sharita, did you pick up any of those holographic papers in the past? What is it? How long have you been stamping now, Sharita? Time like flies so fast. It feels like you've just been doing it for like a year. Maybe it's been two. I don't know, for all I know. But anyways, yeah. So this is the first time I've used these lanterns right here. And I like that color in there. It might look even more dramatic if I just did all this in just strictly grayscale. Just black and white and gray, like neutral gray. The warmth in here kind of, blends in with the warmth in here, which, can be nice too, like that. All right, let me restart my camera. It's like going nuts right here. But yeah, those lanterns would stand out a little bit more in a just a grayscale piece. Oh, okay, they were better. All right, the whales like this. Really fun in these folded card formats, I think. And I really like this. You know what I was thinking about doing too on this one right here? I was thinking about doing these kind of these like winter peaks, the tall peak in the background right there. And I think that would look really cool, kind of reflecting down there with those northern light effects up top like that. But do you see those stars like that up there? You can hand do them too with just a paint pen. Take you, I don't know, whatever, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, to do that in there. It comes out a little bit more varied with the spray patterning like that. Deanna Tupsidio background papers. I can't remember. Were those clouds on the back of all the new ones? I'm not sure. Or was it? Maybe this was the background paper on all of the new ones. Yeah, okay, that was the background paper. I couldn't remember if those clouds were just one of the basic backings on there. But you can do this like this, or if you print out your own clouds, you can do it onto a piece of photo paper, and you can do photo stamping up there like that, and that would be perfect for something like this with those whales, or just whatever you want to stamp down there. So I think those whales really gave us a really good focal point in these that type of setting for these reflection cards. But yeah, I don't know, some different types of ideas like that, and of course those lanterns in here. So I really like having these lighting elements in my pieces. So see, normally on something like this without these things like that, I'd really kind of want like some kind of sort of moon in here or something like that. Okay, I just remembered. Okay, I don't have one already cut out, I don't think. Or do I? I used them all up. But for the for this one here, I was thinking about one of those glow-in-the-dark moons up there, like that. So I can do that as well. I guess it'd be the smaller one like that. But one of these glow-in-the-dark moons up there, I'd color it a little bit to match that, to harmonize with that holographic in there. But that was the other idea I had with that moon, like right up here or something like that. You can still do a quote or something like that in there too, or put the quote on the front of the piece, but that was another option. I was thinking, there's not going to be anything up in there in the sky. I forgot about those moons though too, so it doesn't have to glow in the dark moon, but you can put something like that up there. Or it'd be kind of interesting to put your handwriting up there, dear, whoever, with a little bit of a thing like that. It'd be kind of cool. Okay, you have some glow-in-the-dark eyes, but they're big. Oh, okay. It'd be kind of interesting in those glow-in-the-dark eyes like that, huh? In a piece. If it's done on the vinyl, they would really glow too. Usually something like that, that's so small. If it's, I don't know if it's done with the glow pen, if those things are going to stick out enough, but if you do them in that glow-in-the-dark vinyl, if you get those little things like that, maybe the glow-in-the-dark vinyl, you'd have it I don't know, maybe a little piece, if it was dark enough, and then you just kind of darken out, a couple areas except for those two, rather than like cutting out like little pinhead styles, applications, little dots. Maybe it's just a tiny little strip of, that glow in the dark, material. And then you just have to kind of use a Sharpie pen and darken the area around it so it's like two little beady eyes. So you put on this little strip. It would just have to be dark enough that the strip area, isn't going to show up maybe. Something like that. All right, folks. Happy 4th of July. I'm going to go and check on that that flash flood. That is terrible there. But it's something that, I've definitely thought about a lot when I've been out in the desert. I'm a real desert rat, so flash floods are something like that, that's of, I always have to keep consciously aware of anytime there's clouds coming in or anything like that. I'm always really careful about that. I was just watching these videos on, like this guy, it's called something like 6-minute cougar encounter or something like that, but this mountain lion was going after someone who ended up fine, but it was pretty scary. Hope you have a great rest of weekend. Those replacement stamps, if you weren't on earlier when I was mentioning it, they have been mailed out if you ordered the orcas. And as Linda pointed out, one of the my little lanterns was a little bit funky. Half of the people got a funky one. I mailed that out too with your orcas. Or if you just ordered the one set of lantern pieces. But I'll show you what it is right here. It was that one little floral lantern on this set right here. It's the smaller version of this one right here. But anyways, they are in the mail. If anyone ever has any kind of issue really with any of the Stampscape stamps or something like that, I usually check them, but sometimes it's like, barely decipherable because it could be a little speck or something like that. But I don't know. Funky or molding material or something like that my rubber guy is getting, apparently, because we've never run into anything like this before. But all that's on the way out there. I can't wait to see what everyone does with their new stamps. Thanks for the support. And again, if there's any kind of issues with anything, just drop me a note and we'll take care of it. Thanks, everyone. What time is it there for you now, Linda? It's 5. It's 5 a.m. You're seeing the sunrise. All right. Good night. Good morning.